Yeah, so I think I'll be touching two topics here. One is that challenges you will encounter if you are operating a high myopic eye. Now, there can be a lot of challenges in these eyes, and but incidentally, these are the eyes who will come for VR surgery more frequently. So we are much more experienced for these eyes also. But the biggest challenge is long axial length. Then you have a poor contrast. Then laser uptake might not be great. You can find multiple lattices and retinal breaks with lot of vitreous, which is very difficult to shave off from these eyes. And then there is a higher risk of suprachoroidal hemorrhage and vitrochasis. Vitrochasis we have already discussed in third layers, and suprachoroidal hemorrhage is better prevented, rather than being managed. So in general, our threshold for keeping pressure low is very. In general, we tend to operate at little higher perfusion pressure in these myopic eyes, and preferably with valved cannulas. So rest four, I'll be discussing the long axial length. I think
This
this
was a
video
60-year-old female
actually sums up all the things which you can do to address longer axial length. Now, if you don't have to do anything at macula, then longer axial length doesn't matter in myopes. But if you have a macular hole or ERM and you have to do peeling, then it can be challenging, and especially in eyes who have axial length as long as 30 or maybe 32 millimeters. So one small tip is, if you have a detached retina, don't start your peeling under PFO. So the height of retinal detachment will actually reduce the axial length, and you can easily reach retina, as I am doing in this case. And there was a macular hole in this case, so I was planning a ILM flap. So plan was that we'll fashion a large flap before putting PFO, so that all I have to do is to mobilize flap under PFO. But you will see what happens after I have reattached retina with PFO. Now my forceps not reaching. So this is a very common challenge. Almost everybody who is operating myopic eye must have faced it. So first thing we do is we get rid of a non-contact system and put a self-stabilizing contact lens. So this is first step which you can do. In borderline cases, it will help you, but it didn't help me. And then second step is take out the cannula. Again, this will give you another maybe a millimeter or so, but still I was not able to reach. So now third step is, I think, relocate your sclerotomy more posteriorly. Again, I am removing the cannula and fixing a permanent contact lens with a ring. At this point now, I was able to reach macula, and I was able to peel. And as you can see, after all this, so these are all, I think, tips which one can use when one is facing this challenge. So, and then peripheral retinotomy, and then reattaching the retina. So you can see all these four things I did in this case. I initiated peeling without PFO, then I removed the cannula, made a direct entry, and then I think I switched to contact macular lens, and then I shifted my sclerotomy posteriorly. So these were all, I think, things which one can do. And you can see, I think, case did quite well. Patient had a CNVM also and an occult globe perforation during cataract surgery, but macular hole was closed. We can see the flap. So another thing I think I could have done in these cases is I should have measured the axial length pre-operatively and anticipated this. And we can always go for a longer forceps. You can see there is no financial interest, but Alcon forceps do have this thing at the hub. So that's why removing cannula works only for Alcon forceps. But there are other companies who are making these forceps which are actually longer, and you can actually have a longer forcep in your inventory as a routine, because you don't want to keep a double inventory. Poor contrast, I have already discussed. I'll skip this part. You just initiate peeling after staining and you realize that contrast is not that bad. Now, third challenge which we face is, if you encounter a break in these myopic eyes, especially in posterior in an atrophic area, then there may not be good laser uptake. So how to seal it? So this is what I think I faced in a case. I'll just show that I'm peeling ILM, and this is a macular hole with detachment in high myope. I ended up hitting the edge of the staphyloma, what Dr. Shashank was highlighting. You can watch it again. And the mistake I was doing was I was not following the tip of the forceps. So at this point, you can see there is a linear tear. So then I made it a point that I will peel the ILM off all the edges of this hole which I have created. You can see this hole opening up because I knew this in atrophic area laser will not come up. And you can see this patient did very well. I think hole was had type 2 closure, but retina stayed reattached. There was no opening of that break next to optic disc. So this is one thing what if you encounter a break in posterior pole in myopic eyes, make sure you peel ILM. And second thing you can do for a larger break is something like this. I think again, if you know this how to do it, so it can come to your rescue someday. And I think it's a technique which is being used for now wide variety of disorders. So everybody should have this in his armamentarium for this as a backup. Another challenge which I was saying that which you can face in managing these myopic eyes is if you get multiple lattices and tears and which are in one or two quadrants. You can just join them. I think most VR surgeons who are managing detachments they are doing it. So you just join them and make it a big giant tier, which will be easier to manage. So again, for our fellows and I think beginners, this is don't try to retain the islands of retina in between these tiers. That this will make sure you remove all the traction which is there in these remnants. Now, this was all I think important things about myopic eyes. Then you can have some challenges with silicone oil. This is not all the challenges. We have selected only few. One is that you have done a good surgery and there was no air or oil in the chamber on immediate post intraoperatively when you are closing. But on day one, you find silicone oil filling whole anterior chamber and very high intraocular pressure. Now you see there is a posterior capsular defect in this case, and it was relatively chronic RD. Surgery went very well, uncomplicated, and there was no air in anterior chamber. My threshold for creating an inferior PI is very low, just like Dr. Saurabh pointed out. But somehow this case, there was no, and I was even checking at the conclusion, no oil, no air in AC, but day one is full of AC. So this is many times fellows will call you and ask what to do. So this is for them. I think use a single port, 25 gauge or 23 gauge, create an inferior PI and inject a air bubble in anterior chamber. That's it. And you have to make sure there should be some hypotony when you are doing it. A large amount of oil will go back, and what you can get post-op is a smaller oil bubble which is relatively harmless. Eyes can very nicely tolerate it, and you can see this is after silicone oil removal. You can see the PI retina stayed attached. So with this kind, you can do a minimal intervention to manage this scenario. But to prevent this, I think PI, like already said, is very important. And a very good indication is if air has entered anterior chamber, make it a rule that oil is definitely going to follow it. And when you are doing fluid air exchange, train your assistant to make sure that infusion cannula has to be straight. So make it a habit to check it for all the eyes so that it should be your protocol. If it bends and it is tilted towards anterior chamber, then high chances of oil coming into AC. Inject oil slowly, don't be in hurry. And if you are like really deficient posterior capsule and you are worried that oil should not come into anterior chamber, you can leave a small air bubble behind the IUL. Don't especially if there is no inferior break and you are not worried about underfill. So now third challenge is you get a recurrent retinal detachment under silicone oil, which we have discussed in many other forums also, that lot of surgical interventions can now be done under oil itself. So idea is to just show that you can do nice peelings and everything under oil itself. No need to do complete silicone oil removal and full-fledged surgery. As you will see, I was able to get rid of this star fold under oil, and vacuum works very well. You can drain SRF under oil very easily. You can see the retina is flattened, and laser reaction also is much more intense under silicone oil. You can do indentation like Dr. Ajay was saying, self indentation. You can put chandelier and do self indentation so that you make sure that you have you're not created new breaks or all the earlier breaks are nicely lasered. Again, patient doing quite well even after SOR. Similar thing you can do for diabetics, but for patients who need limited interventions, you can do some vitrectomy also under oil. It's also called interface vitrectomy. You can relieve the traction. You can do bimanual under silicone oil. Uh, this is again another case where there was limited traction. I think I'll wind up in another. This was our older technique where we were injecting oil through the cannula. But these days we don't use infusion cannula to inject oil. We inject it directly through our main port. And this is one, I think, big modification. So our number of ports have come down to zero. So two. So if we are doing resurgery under silicone oil, we are just making two ports. And if I have to add a chandelier, then that becomes the third port. Now again, in this case, there was an inferior redetachment from an open posterior pole break. So as a strategy, I am placing my chandelier at 12 o'clock. So I know that I have to do maximum interventions in the inferior area. So as you will see, there was this break which led to this detachment. There was a subretinal band. I'm purposefully showing this video to demonstrate that sometimes you can get a very bleeding during dissections and subretinal submacular blood. So vacuum works wonderfully well even under oil. You can see immediately you shift to soft tape with high vacuum, and timely I could remove this notorious subretinal blood, and of course reattaching retina and doing laser. So ideal situations or cases where we can attempt a resurgery under oil is eyes will require limited interventions like open breaks, a few tractional membranes, a star fold in one quadrant, a recently operated eyes. I think the more important point is if it's like operated 6 months back, more likely to get emulsified. So better to exchange the oil also at that time. But within first 2-3 months, I think you can retain the oil and do surgery under oil. And of course, I think the cases with proliferative vitreoretinopathy, they don't do well. They need much wider dissections, and so probably they should be either operated with SOR and the full-fledged surgery. Two ports are good enough, I have already highlighted, and there can be few challenges, but if once we have modified our technique, then challenges have become very less now. Just one or two very short clips to I am purposefully sharing this because sometimes I have heard in some forums that people say that you can use Visilon to get rid of this emulsified oil. I would say no, it's not required. Rather, it can make things more messy. So if you have to get rid of emulsified oil, just wash it with BSS. You have to spend some time, but this is good enough for almost all the cases. And similarly, I think if you have some oil droplets trapped in anterior highlight, you can actually gently remove it with cutter, just like we remove retrolenticular blood without compromising the capsular support. So just remove it at the time of SOR, otherwise it will keep troubling the patient. So that's it. Thanks for everyone for watching.